Hello, today we're going to talk about sentence patterns. We're going to get started with a song to help you remember what the patterns are, and then we'll get into what each of them mean. Sentence patterns, subject, verb, subject, verb, direct, object, subject, verb, predicate, nominative, subject, verb, predicate, adjective, subject, verb, indirect object, direct object, subject, verb, direct object, object, complement, adjective, subject, verb, direct object, object, complement, noun. Okay, so now we're going to talk just about the first two sentence patterns, which are subject, verb, intransitive, subject, verb, transitive, direct object. So we're going to make a sentence using these patterns. And I have a lovely, funny story about my cat named Hugo. So the subject of our sentence is going to be Hugo. What did Hugo do? Hugo ate. Every sentence starts with a capital letter and ends with an end mark. Hugo ate is a complete thought. We know that the cat is eating. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to parse our sentence. Hugo is the subject. What did Hugo do? Hugo ate. Ate is the verb. Because there's nothing that comes after it, the action that's happening, the eating, is not being transferred anywhere, so it's intransitive. So we mark it SVI. Okay, for our second sentence, the subject is still going to be Hugo. Hugo is the subject of our sentence. What did Hugo do? Hugo ate. Who or what did Hugo eat? Hugo ate pancakes. So when we go back and parse the sentence, who or what is our sentence about? Hugo. We're going to mark Hugo as our subject. What did Hugo do? Hugo ate. Ate is our verb. What did Hugo eat? He ate pancakes. Pancakes is our direct object. Because the verb ate the action is being transferred to pancakes, the pancakes are being eaten, the verb is called a transitive verb because the action is being transferred. So we mark it subject, verb, transitive, direct object. Okay, so the next two sentence patterns we're going to look at are subject, verb linking, predicate, nominative, and subject, verb linking, predicate, adjective. So, the two sentences we're going to look at is Hugo is a cat and Hugo is fat. So, our subject of our sentence is still going to be Hugo. So, we're going to mark Hugo. And then, what is being said about Hugo? Hugo is. Is our verb. Hugo is what? He is a cat. Okay, so when we go to parse the sentence, who or what is our sentence about? Hugo. Hugo is our subject. What is being said about Hugo? Hugo is. Is our verb. Okay, Hugo is what? Hugo is a cat. Cat is, can cat describe or replace Hugo? Yes, it can replace Hugo. They are both nouns, and the noun is describing Hugo. So we're going to mark it as predicate nominative. And the word, and since Hugo is a cat, we're going to mark this as a verb linking because it's linking what Hugo is to himself. Okay, so now the word a is an article being used as an adjective to describe cat. What kind of cat? A cat. Okay, for our second sentence, SVLPA, we're going to look at the sentence, Hugo is fat. So the subject of our sentence is going to be Hugo. Okay, what is being said about Hugo? Hugo is. Hugo is what? Hugo is fat. When we go to parse this sentence, Who or what is our sentence about? Hugo. Hugo is our subject. What is being said about Hugo? Hugo is. Mark verb. Hugo is what? He's fat. This is something that comes in the predicate. Can this describe or replace Hugo? Yes, it describes Hugo. This is an adjective describing the state of Hugo. So we're going to mark it predicate adjective. Since fat is describing and linking Hugo together, this is going to be marked as a linking verb because it's helping us associate fat with Hugo. Okay, so the next three sentence patterns that we're going to look at are subject verb transitive, indirect object, direct object, subject verb transitive, direct object, object complement noun, and subject verb transitive, direct object, object complement adjective. So for this part of our story, we're going to start with Hugo made himself coffee. So who or what is the subject? Hugo. What is being said about Hugo? Hugo made. Made is our verb. What did Hugo make? Hugo made coffee. To whom or for whom did he make the coffee? Himself. So our sentence reads, Hugo made himself coffee. When we go back to parse our sentence, who or what is our sentence about? Hugo. Hugo is the subject of the sentence. What is being said about Hugo? Hugo made. Made is our verb. What did Hugo make? He made coffee. Coffee is a direct object. To whom or for whom did he make the coffee? For himself. So, since this is answering the question, who is the, what is the direct object being given to? This is marked as an indirect object. Now, since Hugo made coffee, his verb made, the action of being made, is going from Hugo to the coffee. The action is being transferred, so we mark this VT for transitive verb. For SVT, DOOCN, we're going to continue our story about Hugo. And in this part of the story, Hugo made himself king. So, who or what is our sentence about? Hugo. Hugo is our subject. What is being said about Hugo? Hugo made. Made is our verb. What did Hugo make? He made himself. Okay, what? It says Hugo made himself what? Hugo made himself king. We're going to put this down here so we don't run into our other sentence in a few minutes. Okay. Now, when we go back to parse this sentence, who or what is our sentence about? Hugo. Hugo is our subject. What is being said about Hugo? Hugo made. We're going to mark that as a verb. What did Hugo make? He made himself. We're going to mark this as a direct object because Hugo made himself. This is, again, the made is transferring action from Hugo to himself. So this is going to be, again, a transitive verb because made is what Hugo did to himself. Okay, now, when we have a direct object and the word after it is describing himself, can this word here replace or describe himself? Yes, it can. This can replace or describe what he made of himself. And king is a noun. So we'll mark this as an object complement noun. So this shows our sentence pattern of SVT, DO, OCN. So when we do our last sentence pattern, it's going to be very similar. Subject, verb, transitive, direct object, object, complement, adjective instead of noun. Okay? So in this last sentence, Hugo made himself fabulous. So, who or what is our sentence about? Our sentence is about Hugo. I'm just going to do this lovely little visual here so that you can see to keep these separate. Hugo is our subject. What is being said about Hugo? Hugo made. Made is our verb. What did Hugo make? Hugo made himself. What did he make himself? He made himself fabulous. We're going to go back and parse our sentence. Who or what is our sentence about? Hugo. Hugo is our subject. What is being said about Hugo? Hugo made. Made is our verb. What did Hugo make? Hugo made himself. This is going to be our direct object because himself describes Hugo. When we're talking about the word made, the verb made, the action of being made is transferring from Hugo to himself. So this is a verb transitive because the action is being transferred from Hugo to himself. Okay, so Hugo made himself what? He made himself fabulous. Now we're going to mark it object complement, but we don't know if it's a noun or an adjective until we decide, does fabulous describe or replace Hugo? Yes. Fabulous describes, so it's an adjective. So we're going to mark this as object complement adjective. And that goes through all 7 sentence patterns.